This morning we heard Ryan talk a lot about houses and a spiritual house. Well, this afternoon we're going to hear about the foundation of that house. What inspired me for this talk, or stuff I was thinking about, was just a lot of you know I'm going to school for construction management, and I'm working for a contractor right now that's heavy civil construction. So it's all they pretty much do is road construction, foundations, and work along those lines. And I never really understood, like I always knew that there was quite a bit that went into foundations in general, but I didn't realize how much really goes into it. And there's a lot of parallels we can make between the foundations, like physical foundations, and our foundational walk with God. So let's go to Matthew chapter 7. I'm going to go Matthew chapter 7 and we're going to start in verse 24. Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon the house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And every one that heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them not, shall be likened unto a foolish man which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon the house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. I remember, like when I read these scriptures, it just reminded me of a talk actually my dad gave about building, and because he's in construction as well, and I've done a lot of work with him, and how and a lot of the work that I've worked with my dad on has been residential construction, and a lot of it's been like structural stuff, not necessarily foundations. And kind of like I just said, I just never really thought that much about what goes into that to foundations as its science all on its own. But after working with this company, I really saw how much goes into it, and how much design and time and effort that goes into just getting it right. And some of the examples of that, like there was a road we were working on, and there was a bad patch of the soil was bad. It wasn't good ground. So we had to pour rock down underneath the road, and it had to go down 12 inches thick, which is a good amount of material to build that road up. And then just the engineering that goes into that, and figuring all that out, and all the calculations, and all that realm of stuff. And it's just amazing how much has to really go into that. And and so if we go back and we read verse 25 and 26 of this, and it says, and the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon the house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And every one that heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them not, shall be likened unto a foolish man which built his house upon the sand. Something I found interesting when I was reading these scriptures was it doesn't really talk about how the house was built. It talks about the foundation. And if the foundation is not solid, what good's the house? If it's not solid, if you're not on a solid ground, if you're not on the rock of the Lord, what good is it? It's going to fall. As soon as the storms come, and we have our trials come in our lives, and they hit our spiritual house, it's going to deteriorate, and it's going to fall apart. And you can design like houses that have been designed to withstand class 4 tornadoes and hurricanes and all this stuff. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't have a solid base. The base is going to get washed out. The foundation is going to get washed out from underneath it, and it's going to fall and break anyway. So I just saw that as a huge thing in our walks, is that if we have to make sure our foundation is solid with the things of the Lord. So like why do we want to make sure our foundation is solid? Because we're going to have trials in our lives. We're going to always have things that come up and things that we have to go through, and we're going to have to call on the Lord for these things. And if that's why our foundation is so important with the Lord, is when those problems do arise and we have to face them, that the Lord's there on our side, and we can get through them. And a lot of times it's not real pleasant, and it's not a fun experience, but a lot of times we end up coming back, or we always come back, and we come back stronger. Let's go to Luke chapter 6. Luke chapter 6 and then verse 46. All right. And we call you me, Lord, Lord, and do not the things which I say. Whatsoever cometh to me and heareth and my sayings and doeth them, I will show you to whom he is like. He is like a man which built his house and digged deep and laid the foundation on a rock. And when the flood arose, the stream beat vehemently upon the house and could not shake it, for it was founded upon a rock. But he that heareth and doeth not is like a man that without a foundation built his house upon the earth, against which the stream did beat vehemently, and immediately it fell, and the ruin of the house was great. We're going to, like I just said, we're going to have trials in our lives, and we're going to have things that are going to come for us, and we want to make sure we're built on that rock and we're built solid. One thing with working out with this company, we ran into an issue once where the design of this one footing was once they got down to the soil that they needed to pour the footing on, it was all sand, and it was not obviously sand is not good for pouring a foundation on because it moves and it gives. So what we literally had to do is we had to dig down until we eventually found bedrock, and we were able to put that foundation on the solid surface on that rock. And when we poured the footing, we had to. It was like 1,000 cubic yards of concrete to make sure it wasn't going to move. And just to kind of put that in perspective, one concrete truck holds 9.5 yards of concrete. So it was over 100 truckloads of concrete that had to be poured so this footing would not move, so it was solid. So when the storms came, this building would withstand the storms. And how much time are we putting into our foundation? When I was thinking about this, and how much time and effort and energy went into making sure that the design of this was going to withstand the storm. How much time are we putting in our foundations in our walk? How much reading are we doing? How much praying are we doing to the Lord to build ourselves up so when those storms do come, we're ready for them? We have to ask ourselves that all the time, and we always have to self-evaluate ourselves, because we have the truth. We have the power of the Lord living inside of us with the evidence of the Holy Spirit, evidence of speaking in tongues. Excuse me. Hang on just a second. I got lost. So when we do have these trials and our house is being beat upon, and we're just constantly coming under fire. What are we doing? Are we looking to the world to help us through the issue that we're having, or are we praying to the Lord? That's why it's important that we read and pray always, and we're built up in the Spirit, and we know the Word of God. So when we do have problems or things that we need to overcome, we know who to go to. We know who our Father is. It's God. Something else we can take comfort in is knowing that the Lord is never going to completely leave us without. He might let us struggle and let us to help us become stronger, but He's never going to leave us without. An analogy I really like is, it's like when someone's going to the gym, or they're they're training for some kind of a sporting event. They're putting their body through a trial, whatever that may be, running, lifting weights, trying to get stronger, whatever that is. But they're putting their body through a trial, so when they're done with it, they come out that much stronger. And that's a lot of times when we're going through a problem in our lives, that's what's happening. But we can always know that the Lord's never going to give us more than we can handle. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 31. Deuteronomy 31 and in verse 6. Be strong and of good courage. Fear not, nor be afraid of them. For the Lord thy God, He it is that doth go with thee. He will not fail thee nor forsake thee. We all have points in our lives where we ask God, like, why me? Why am I going through this? But we can come to scriptures like this for encouragement to help us through whatever we're going through. And like I mentioned before, sometimes we come under fire and we're having that trial and we don't know what's going on or why it's happening. But we have to remember that when we're doing that, we're going to come out that much stronger. We can think about God being the ultimate contractor, and He sometimes might think that, hey, you need a little bit of a design change. You need this change in your life. And that process isn't pleasant, but it is necessary to build us up. There's a lot of times, there's been a lot of designs over the years with different types of construction. Some big storm happened or some major event happened and it wiped out a portion of it or wiped out a building completely. And man has came in there and they've learned from that mistake and they've redesigned things and learned things when they're designing new buildings, how to make it better. That's just how our walks are. When we have these experiences in our lives and trials, and we come out stronger, we learn something from it, and we have to always know that we have to always be willing to learn, because we're never going to know everything, and we just have to know that. And the Lord's going to help us through it, and He's going to guide us, and He's going to protect us, and He's always going to be there for us every step of the way. And we have to remember too that God is our rock. He's solid. He's not going anywhere. When we feel like we're coming away from God, it's us that's moved. It's not God. He's that solid rock and does not move. He's that solid foundation. Let's go to 2 Timothy. Second Timothy chapter 4, verse 2. Preach the word, be instant in season and out of season. Reprove, rebuke, exhort, and all long-suffering and all doctrine. We have a job to do. Our job is to go forth and tell people what we have, to show them what the power we have living inside of us that God has given us. And it can be hard to do that at times, and it's not the most pleasant thing at times. And we have to constantly be ready. That's why we need that foundation strong. So when we have those opportunities come in front of us, we're ready to go. There's a guy at school actually I've been talking to, and I actually mentioned about him in a testimony, and I've had several really good conversations about scriptures, and he's gone to church his whole life, and he just doesn't, he's looking for something and he doesn't know what he's looking for, and he keeps coming to me and asking a lot of questions. And the other day, this was a couple of weeks ago, I was trying to study because I had an exam coming up, and I was like, okay, I told myself I need to go in here and I need to go study and I can't do anything else. And he came up to me and he just said, hey, would you want to go have lunch? And I kind of know with him, when he wants to go eat lunch, that's when we always end up having these conversations. So I right at that moment, I really should do work, but then I said yes because I knew. I thought about it for a second, and then I ended up going. But I was so glad I went, because we ended up having just another really good conversation about the Lord, and talking about the salvation scriptures, of what the scriptures actually mean. And you can just see in his heart, he just wants to do whatever's right to serve the Lord, and he just doesn't know how to get there. And I'm showing him these scriptures, and he's telling me, he says, I can't argue with you. You're showing me scriptures right out of the Bible. And so I'm continuing talking with him, and hopefully one day we'll see him here. That's something I've been praying about as well. But my point is that we have to be ready in season and out of season all the time, because we never know when those opportunities are going to come up, and we're going to get busy in our lives, and we have things that we have to do, and we get sidetracked off. And then when someone asks us a question or something comes up, sometimes we don't take those opportunities to share God's word, and we need to make sure we're doing that. Because it's important. So kind of a question when I was working on this was that how important is it to preach the gospel? So let's go to Mark chapter 16. Mark chapter 16, and we're going to pick it up in verse 15. And he said unto them, Go ye into all the world, and preach the gospel to every creature. He that believeth and is baptized shall be saved, but he that believeth not shall be damned. And these signs shall follow them that believe. In my name shall they cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. So then after the Lord had spoken unto them, he was received up into heaven, and set on the right hand of God. And they went forth and preached everywhere, the Lord working with them and confirming the word with signs following. Amen. We read in verse 19, right before God went back up, Jesus went to heaven. And it was like the last thing he told the apostles was to go forth and preach the gospel. So if it's not clear how important that is, I don't know what else is. That's pretty obvious how important that is. One other thought I was thinking about when just with the whole construction aspect of it was the job I'm working on right before Thanksgiving. There was a big storm that was coming on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and I really didn't know much about it, but erosion control, how important erosion control was on the job site when you have dirt and stuff like that, and you have a lot of rain, it just erodes what you have. And I was just thinking about how much the world has eroded the Word of God, and how it's just been watered down over time, and it's the words that are in the Bible have just been washed away, and it's just that much more important that we know the truth, what the Scriptures say, that we need to preach the gospel and use the Word of God to back up what we have. And it's a powerful thing when people ask you questions, and you can just go to the Bible and say, "This is what the Bible says," and they can't argue with that. I mean, it's what the Bible says. So just one last scripture, just salvation scripture. Let's go to Acts chapter 2. And we'll Acts chapter 2 and verse 37. Now when they heard this, they were pricked in their heart, and said unto Peter and to the rest of the apostles, Men and brethren, what shall we do? And Peter said unto them, Repent, be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ, for the remission of sin, and ye shall receive the gift of the Holy Ghost. That's what the Lord wants us to do. That's how He wants us to serve Him. And we can take comfort in the simplicity of the Word of God. And when we have Jesus living inside of us and guiding us in our lives, and we can just take that and use it in our lives all the time. So just in closing, just make sure our foundation's strong, so when the storms come, we're ready to go. And all people said, amen. All right, at this time we're going to have a time of prayer. If you have any needs, there'll be people in the front that pray with you.